Going on to roll call. President Fish.
Here.
Vice President Pellegrino. Here. Treasurer Wu.
Here.
Secretary Wadsworth.
Here.
Chief Justice.
Here.
Director of Community Outreach. Excused. Director of PR.
Here.
Senator DeHop. Senator Rogers. Senator Self.
Here.
Senator Fees.
Here.
Senator D'Argenio is excused. Senator Rosamilia.
Here.
Senator Marquette. Our advisor, CFB, is excused. Wildcat Media. The Factory Times. Web. Wildcat Esports. SAC is excused. Res Life is excused. And our College Council. Going on to the approval of minutes of October 6th, 2022. Do we have any discussion for these minutes? Seeing none, we'll be going on to voting. All those in favor of these minutes? All those who oppose? And all those who abstain? With that, that passes 6-0-0. We have no announcements. We have no guest speakers. Going on to exec reports. Our president.
So just a quick reminder that Professional Development Day is on the 15th, which is this Saturday from 9:30 to like 4. If you haven't yet either received or filled out the Google form, please do so as soon as possible. If you don't show up and you don't notify me, or any of your members don't notify me that they can't attend, they will be struck. I really don't want to do that, so if you can attend, please come. If you can't attend, just let me know as soon as possible. I'm going to give a quick SAC report. So they are looking at doing a staff charity volleyball game in the Campus Center gym December 1st at 6:30. There will be 2 teams. They have raffles and different games to play in order to help raise money. And they're looking towards SGU to help provide some sort of catering, so either ice cream or popcorn that they can sell to help raise additional money. I think it's a great way to kind of collaborate with SAC and the sports teams on campus, and I think it's a great way to also raise money for charity. So you'll be hearing more of that most likely in resolution. SUNY SA is holding their fall annual conference November 18th through the 20th at the Doubletree by Hilton in Syracuse. The deadline to register is November 4th. We're looking at bringing some of the senators and directors. So if you're interested, you'll be getting a Google form link to register. Just remember that if you do attend and if you are selected, you are going to be held to a level of professionalism that you've never been held on being in SGU. You're going to be meeting with students from all over the SUNY system, administrators within the SUNY system. It's a great opportunity, but it is a huge professional development opportunity. Also, the Google form is just to say that you're interested. It's not guaranteeing you a spot. We are allowed to only bring 4 members. Lastly, I did have the chance to meet with the provost. I know there were some concerns about that. The first thing is I met with her and talked about funding for Capstone. She mentioned that she's going to talk to some of the deans and see if there's a better way to increase funding towards that Capstone projects, and if the application for funding can be changed. So is that application too difficult for students to apply for, and is it being discriminatory in some kind of way? And is it equitable? And she's going to reevaluate that to see if it's to make it easier and to increase the funding. I know there were questions about pass-fail, so similar to what our advisor and myself said last meeting, pass-fail will not be brought back this semester in the extent of what you saw. The biggest recommendation was if you were sick, contact your professors, and you can always do the you can do a medical withdrawal, or you can take an incomplete where you finish your grade over the summer. Of course, not all professors will allow you to do that, but there are other options. You can also talk to the Wellness Center and the Student Center to help get temporary accommodations for that. With that, thank you, and I yield.
On to the VP report. Hi, y'all. Hope you're doing well. All senators, you should have received an email from me about an hour ago regarding committee selections. Committee training will be held on next Tuesday from 12 to 1 p.m. in the SGU conference room. So, this is mandatory for all senators who are co-chairs and chairs. And lastly, the pro tem nominations are today, so they will be held at the beginning of open forum. So, senators, be ready to nominate who is your best pick for pro tem. Thank you, and I yield. On to our Treasury Report.
Anyways, I'll just start from the start. Hello. I went over a tiny bit of voucher training for clubs today at the CFB meeting. I'll be attending a few meetings, and since committees will be starting soon, Budget Committee members, Senator Self, Senator Dahab, and Senator Rosamila, I hope I got it right, meet with me real quick after the meeting so I could establish the date, time, and location. There will be discussions of future polls into the reserve, and org heads, please let me know if you want to dig into reserves for a reasonable amount and reasoning. Please have a presentation available, and a tentative date deadline will be February 2nd, 2023. I'm only saying this once, and a tentative deadline for the fiscal year 2023-2024 will be February 23rd, 2023. I wish you luck if you have exams coming up, and I'm glad you're all back safe. I yield.
On to our Secretary Report.
Hi everyone. The blood drive went really well. We had an amazing turnout, and I want to apologize for all the confusion with walk-ins. I also want to thank CFB and all the clubs and people who came to volunteer. It was a huge help. So thank you to everybody that came. I yield.
On to our Chief Justice Report.
No report, but I would just like to say that I hope everybody's having a great Thursday.
Our Director of PR Report.
Hi everyone, glad to see all your wonderful faces back again, but no report from me.
And our Director of Community Outreach Report.
Hello everyone. This month I'll be working with Cornhill Cares, which is a local youth program in Utica, to help raise candy for their Harvest on the Hill event. Otherwise, I'm also working on a food drive for Thanksgiving, as well as hopefully going to be distributing period packs for low-income families in the area of Utica. Both of these events will be more officially announced when they are ready. If you have any questions about any of these events or any ideas, please let me know. You can always email me at nolanl@sunypoly.edu. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.
Our College Council Report.
No report.
And lastly, our Advisor Report.
To Bailey on behalf of SGU that you rocked everything with that blood drive. So SGU sponsors the blood drive, but the work and all of the legwork, all the signage for weeks has been Bailey, and so I think it's due to give her a round of applause. That blood drive is a way for student government to be promoted and to be seen on campus and giving back to the community at large. And so big thanks to all those from CFB and the clubs who also gave of their time. Drag Bingo is on Tuesday, 8 p.m. in this room. Hope you can attend. End of report.
That concludes exec reports. Committee reports won't go on today as training has not been finished. So, on to org reports. Webb.
Hello everyone, I hope everyone had a great break. Just a few quick announcements for upcoming events. We have Halloween DIY in the NPR tonight at, I believe, 7:30 p.m. We will have the VR Beyond Reality event happening tomorrow at 1:30 to 6:30 in the gym, as it had to be postponed due to personal problems. Following that, we have Drag Bingo coming up that Webb will be sponsoring with CSI office on Tuesday, 8 p.m. And from noon to 1 or 2 p.m. on Tuesday, we will have a Aroma Yoga event that will be going on, I believe, in the multicultural room. Right? And that is all for our Webb's report. Thank you.
CFB is still excused, so Wildcat Media.
No report.
The Factory Times.
No report.
And Wildcat Esports.
Hello. I hope everyone had a good break. WCE and Webb will be having an event this Friday, 1:30 p.m. with Beyond Reality at the Campus Center. Come and join the fun with us. Our Smash Ultimate Team A has qualified for the Rutgers University LAN Tournament on November 4th, Please join us on cheering them on. I yield.
That concludes org reports. We have no old business for this week, so on to new business. Bill 2223-07. Senator McKay.
3-07.
Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Self.
Members of the student government at Utica of SUNY Poly, as represented in the Senate, do enact as follows. The purpose of this bill is to transfer $4,500 from line number to assist with transportation, meals, and materials for the fall of 2022 Innovation Challenge hosted at SUNY Polytechnic Institute.
Do we have any discussion? Senator Fees.
I think this is a great idea. I think the only thing that I'm nervous about is that a line transfer is supposed to be a resolution and not a bill. So I'm wondering if that would fall under House rules or if that would be under, or if that would be something that we would have to send back to our writers, have them rewrite that as a resolution, and have them come back with that. I yield to our audience member.
I'm the president. I just have to help. I was assigned to help with this resolution. I worked with the professor who hosts this, so I'll work with one of the senators to make a new resolution. So I would just recommend tabling it. I yield.
Senator Fees.
I'd like to make a motion to table this bill indefinitely.
Do we have a second? Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Self. Is there any discussion on tabling this bill back to its creators? Our audience member.
This is confusing. I'm helping our audience member. I'm still president right now. I'm not as an audience member. I recommend to the Senate to not vote yes to that. I just want to give our audience member a chance to talk about this bill beforehand. But then you may do as you please.
I'd like to rescind my motion.
All right. Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Self. Going on to voting for rescinding the motion. All those in favor? All those who oppose? And all those who abstain. With that, that passes 6-0-0. So back on to business of Bill 2223-07. Our audience member.
Yeah, basically this innovation challenge is based on housing shelter issues. So right now the Utica area, we are facing a quite costly. What we say it is. If you want to buy a house, it's becoming a problem. Even though from the past couple of decades, the price became very higher in this issue. So that we are working on this particular innovation thing. So we are trying to make it's kind of a hackathon in this event we are conducting, and we just show the students like how the real-time issues be in that particular location, how to solve it, and we just taking the prototype to implement in the bigger real-time scenarios. This is basically about that, and we are organizing the food and transportation, everything to them. And we had initially, when we had a preliminary discussions with the food company, they told us like it's around 1,000 higher than the previous year. But right now we had a exact figures. Right, it's almost 3,900 right now, and that's why we are asking for 4,500 this year.
Do we have any discussion? Senator Fees.
If I remember correctly, I think we funded this last year as well, the ICNY, and I feel like that went off as a hit. You know what I mean? Getting students involved in local communities to help out. I think that's a great idea to, pull innovation from younger minds, because as much as, older minds count too, our minds count as well. I mean, we're still in college, we're learning about all these new things and bringing these minds in and paying for these minds to come in and, work together to create a better community for ourselves locally. I think that's a wonderful thing that we as SUNY Poly and we as a student government should be taking part in. I yield.
As well, the students are also coming here this year.
Senator Self.
See a little backlash for this. I'm being funny with this slightly. I know the older folk will still pertain to their older ideas, while us younger folk now will have our new innovative ideas from learning. And then they'll look at something and maybe be like, hey, let's try this, instead of someone like an older engineer, for say, comes and looks and he's like, let's just change this and we're good. Newer ideas might prove more beneficial than old ones. I yield.
Do we have any further discussion? Seeing none with that. Senator Pease?
And our president, do you think that we would like to table this back to the creators yet, or do you want us to wait? I yield to our president.
That's really up to the Senate. I can't make a recommendation. So.
Senator Pease?
To make a motion to table this bill back to the creators, maybe in the form of a resolution. I yield.
Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Marquette. Going on to discussion. Do we have any discussion for motioning to table this bill back to the creators? Seeing none with that, we'll be going on to voting. All those in favor? All those who oppose? And all those who abstain. With that, that passes 6-0-0. That concludes discussion of that bill. Going on to Resolution 2223-04. Senator Rogers.
2223-04.
Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Pease.
We, the Senate of the SUNY Poly Student Government at Utica, do hereby resolve the purpose of this resolution is to confirm Thomas Farmer as Wildcat Media General Manager in the Student Government at Utica. Whereas the Executive Board has nominated Thomas Farmer to fill the Wildcat Media General Manager position within the Student Government at Utica, therefore be it enacted, the Student Government at Utica Senate considers and confirms the nomination of Thomas Farmer as the Wildcat Media General Manager, therefore be it resolved, contractual obligations pertaining to the Wildcat Media General Manager position shall begin at the conclusion of the Senate meeting in which this resolution is adopted, and be it finally resolved, the Senate of the Student Government at Utica will have additional members to represent the students of SUNY Poly.
Do we have any discussion for this resolution? Senator Pease?
Do questions go later, or do I have to?
You may ask questions now if you'd
like.
like.
Okay. Yes. Alrighty, so first of all, I would like to welcome Thomas Farmer to our horseshoe. Thank you very much for having the courage to come for this position, and you're going to do great in this interview. So my first question that I would like to ask you is, why did you pick this position? What gravitated you towards this position? What was your passion for the position? I'm going to yield to Mr. Thomas Farmer here.
I've had experience working with media clubs in high school, where I was president of my high school's media club. I've done tech for plenty school shows, and I helped Wildcat Media as our videographer last year. One of the reasons I've been interested in this position.
Chief Justice Tabor.
I would also like to welcome you and thank you for being the intro for this position. I'm going to
jump into it. Can you give me two problems that you find with Wildcat Media, and then two things that you want to work on this semester specifically, if you're elected in this position? I yield.
That's a tough question. So yeah, I guess two of the problems that I've seen is sometimes there's just a general lack of communication between members. They encourage us to use our Discord and email more to communicate with each other. And then seen problems where sometimes people will show up to events at a whole bunch of different times, so there will be little coordination as to who will be there at what time. So times when we'll have a whole bunch of people at an event from say like 3 to 5, but then like 5 to 6 we only have one person there. So maybe just working on coordination to make sure we're well staffed throughout an event.
Senator Pease.
So with communication comes conflict in almost every position, and as a leader, it is your job to ensure that conflict is resolved, or to some extent resolved. So what is your plan if you have conflict between yourself and another member, or perhaps members against other members? I yield to Mr. Thomas Farmer.
I'll say first, if there's conflict between our members, it depends on what the conflict is. Say if it's discussing what's the proper way to hook up a speaker, I just tell them to do it the way that we've been doing things, because I know that works. But say if it's students are calling each other names and they aren't stopping, I'd rather defer that to our, say, student affairs, because if I can't do something correctly, I'd rather have it done the right way than have it done my way.
Senator Self.
Strategies would you plan to use to generate like results within and like solutions to possibly any issues, or like provide a more openness to the public for SGU and SUNY Poly wide?
Say more advertisements, encouraging students to use the Cork app and engage, because check their emails. Just a lot of times I'll hear students say things like, "Oh yeah, there was an email about that." And we like, "Yeah, there was an email. You didn't see it?" And they're just like, "Oh, I haven't checked my email since September." It's encouraging students to check their emails and actually look at the advertisements we put up around campus. It would help us out.
Senator Rogers.
For more for my own clarification, so just as a preemptive statement, I know you've been doing the interim general manager stuff. Thank you for that. Do you predict that this would be like just pretty much a name change as to being like, I guess, permanent, or do you think this is going to include like a little bit extra in the process, I suppose? Audience member.
Personally, I think this would mostly just be a name change. I know there would be a few more responsibilities where, say, I don't know, I guess I'd have to make sure that I'm more into it, I guess. And that's, yeah, it's interim, but if it's actually a position, yeah. Sorry, I'm bad at interviews.
Chief Justice Tabor.
That this resolution does not go through and you are not elected this position, how do you feel like your relationship would change with student government? And like, would you still be involved with media, or would you drop it entirely? I yield.
If this resolution fails, I would still be involved with media, because I like helping out with media. That's why I'm here in the first place. And I wouldn't hold anything against student government, because, I mean, it's your job to do what's best for the student body. It's not your job to do what you think is what I want. So separate what you do for work from how I see you as friends.
Senator Fees.
So, as someone who's been in leadership positions, I think the meaning of leadership matters a lot to an individual person. So, just want to ask you, what does leadership mean to you, and what makes a good leader? I'm going to yield to Mr. Thomas Farmer.
And being a leader is like somebody who isn't just standing there giving directions. Like, they should know what to do, and they should be willing to help out if somebody needs help, instead of just looking down at people like, how come you don't know how to do this? It should be, oh, well, I'll show you how to do this if you need help. But also, if they know what they're doing, a leader shouldn't be there to babysit them. The leader should be finding something else to do and getting that done, so we could finish our tasks faster.
Senator Self.
What would be the most important thing as being a manager for you to be able to do this year? I yield to our candidate.
Again, the main thing for me would just be communication. If I need help, I'd love to be able to reach out to our senators and executives to make sure everything's going smoothly. If they need help, we'll help them. And if we need help, I would hope that SGU would be willing to help us.
Do we have any further discussion? Senator Fees.
So part of an org's constitution is to be there for not only their own org, but also for SGU and for the student body. What are your plans to directly impact the student body, given your position?
Say, we have a radio show that if students want to come and help, or be on the radio, or create their own TV show on campus, we'd be more than happy to let them do so. If they want to help volunteer, or if there's a club that needs help in an event, if they reach out, we're happy to help them.
Do we have any further discussion or questions? Our president.
Motion to go into executive session?
So moved by Senator Self. Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Fees. Going on to voting for executive session. All those in favor? All those who oppose? And all those who abstain. With that, executive session passes 6-0-0. So at this time, if all the audience members may temporarily leave the room, as well as the candidate. They have to leave. Yeah, I know. All right. So, congratulations, Thomas. The resolution passed 6-0-0. Following that, you should get an official contract from our secretary soon enough. Completing that resolution, we'll be going on to Bill 2223-08. Senator Rosamilia.
Motion to accept bill number 2223-08.
Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Self.
Thank you. We as the members of the SUNY. Oh wait. I could go on mine. Sorry. I don't have my glasses. So I should go on my thing. Sorry. Of the student government at Utica of SUNY Poly, as represented in the Senate, do enact as follows. The purpose of this bill is to amend Article 23. The purpose of this bill is to add an online posting policy and make additional changes to the existing policy. I yield.
Do we have any discussion? Senator Fees.
To take down old posters. You don't want to clutter the boards with things from Halloween when it's Christmas time, because that would make me sad. I think the only thing that I have a concern was another, it says add section 23.12.0 for online advertising and having it follow 23.4.0, which states that it has to be paid for, I have to say, like, on the online poster that's paid for by your student activities fee. Not every online poster would be paid for by your student activity fee. Like, if you have your own Adobe Flash and you're not using your SAF and you're making a poster with that, you're not using your student activities fee to pay for that, so why would you put it on the poster? Would that just be via discretion of the org if it's not used, or would that be there's like poster on everything? I guess I yield to our president.
So the paid for by your student activities fee is also for the event itself. So that's what it's advertising. It's advertising you're using money to print, and it's paid for by your student activities fee as the event. I'll yield just to the floor.
Wildcat Esports.
There we go. We actually do this anyway, starting this semester, just in case that, because usually we would post the graphic on our socials before the poster goes up across campus. So just in case the graphic is posted across campus, we do follow the general poster policy anyway for all of our graphics, unless it's like a match graphic, then we actually know that's not going to be a poster. But all graphics related to events and any promotional graphics, in case like we have an open position, does have that paid for by student activities fee slogan to our in the graphic. I yield.
Senator Fees.
4.0, does that also apply to campaign people? So if a senator was to campaign, would they also have to put paid for by your student activities fee because it relates to Engage and they're paying for Engage? Or would campaigners, like for president, vice president, execs, senators, college council, whatever, or would that not apply to them? And if it doesn't, should we write something in the policies? I yield to President Fish.
So in the attachment 23.8.0, it says any person choosing to campaign using social media must follow the official student government at Utica social media. Oh wait, no. There is online. We changed it last year, where we don't have to post that anymore. It used to be in the policy where it said any posters have to have written by your student activities fee, but it won't be there anymore. I yield.
Chief Justice Tabor.
This question is directed at CFB specifically for the in the third method. I don't know the technical term, but I have section 23.11.0 where it says all physical posters shall be removed a week after advertised. How would you enforce that? Is that just kind of like, oh, if a poster's been up for 2 weeks and it's for a club event, you would take it and you would end up freezing the club, or like what would be the ramifications if they violate that section specifically? I yield to CFP.
So yeah, I think the general plan is like obviously you'd have to kind of work at your own discretion. I know when I'm walking around and stuff like that, I'm putting up posters. There's definitely some like old posters and stuff up there, but I think the main thing that we're just trying to eliminate is clubs that are getting the majority of their posters down. While I wouldn't freeze a club for missing one poster, if they're missing, I don't know, more than 3, chances are what I do is I just let them know, remind them, give them enough time, and then, again, too, if it doesn't get taken down or if no changes happened, obviously they would get frozen until they would take down their posters. Yeah, that's the plan.
Chief Justice Tabor.
In similar vein, I would like to ask the e-board if an organization has like a poster. I would use FragFest as an example. If they have a FragFest poster and it's they don't take them down a week after, what are the ramifications of that looking like? I yield to the president.
So it would be similar. We can't freeze an org, but it would just be, just, hey, make sure you take down your posters, giving them a warning, then like some kind of formal warning, and then like following from there. I yield.
Well,
that for things like Apocalypse Week, where we would be putting posters up a week before, but leaving them in throughout the week, as say we've had General Apocalypse Week posters in the past that have advertised the whole week's events. Would that follow under the same guidelines? Would there be some sort of stated thing before towards SGU execs to be aware of for that type of thing? I yield to the president.
That's a good point. In my opinion, and how I would interpret that would be, you are advertising that last event on the Friday, let's just say. So it's a week from that Friday, if that makes sense, because you're still advertising all those events that week. I yield.
Senator Rogers.
Posters, an issue that I come up was the, jurisdiction of boards. Do we have these? Is this wide for every single sort of board out on campus, or would this be applying to specific ones that student government has? I yield to our president.
Yeah, these would be public boards, so the boards that specifically say what office it is, we can't post on those anyway. But any campus events boards or any public use boards, it would apply to there. I yield.
Wildcat Media.
Sorry. So I know it says all posters shall be removed a week after the advertised event. What if it's say, I know we have posters for Computer Science Club from last year that are still around campus that advertise their meeting times, but the location of their meeting room is no longer what's listed on the posters. Would that fall under this because it's not an event, it's just their meeting, even though the location is wrong on their posters?
Our president.
That's a good question. I'm not 100% sure, and I'm gonna look for the Senate for advice on this. But again, my interpretation would be because it's a running event, it would be acceptable. And then maybe a week after that year. So if it's a fall semester thing, it gets taken down after the fall semester. I'll yield to the floor.
Senator Silk.
He made a really good point, because I remember some of our committees last year had posters up saying their days, time, where to meet up for the whole semester. The only time they actually changed them out is when we went to the next semester, and then you had to take them down because you had different times, different meeting area, everything. So I think going off of what the president said, where the last meeting technically counts as your last event, air quote that please, it would count as your last event. I yield.
Senator Fees.
So I think there's a lot of nuances in this bill that need to be considered, you know, committee times? What if there's misinformation on the poster? So if there's a committee that, you know, moved, does that now fall under that jurisdiction? We do have policy committee that's starting, so I'm wondering if we should table this to policy and have the senators with the vice president, the co-chair, Chief Justice Tabor, and a couple other people talking about this in a meeting and just spending time on just this. I yield to the floor.
Chief Justice Tabor.
I would actually, that's a great point. My concern is that there's a lot of vagueness, especially in the way of like how it's going to be enforced. Like who is, so are we going, or is it SGU's job to go around and to make sure all the posters are up, or is it a club thing? Like, is Trevor going to be walking around Kinsella Hall counting all the posters? Like who does it fall on? There was a discussion before, we were talking to our advisor, and our advisor were talking about a work study position. So yeah, there's concerns, there's vagueness there, and I yield to the president.
So just, I made this vague for a purpose. I promise I could have gotten into a lot of detail, but I think what Senator Feed said was a good point. So I'm going to entertain the motion to table this to policy. I yield.
So moved by Senator Fees. Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Marquette. Going on to discussion. Do we have any discussion? Seeing no discussion for the motion, we'll be going on to voting for tabling this to Policy Committee. All those in favor? All those who oppose? And all those who abstain. With that, that passed 6-0-0. Now, that should conclude new business. Going on to open forum. And we're starting open forum off today with the pro temp nominations. So, at this time, we're opening up the floor to senators for pro temp nominations, like I said. So you may either nominate yourself or a fellow senator as long as they approve. So, Senator Self.
I nominate Senator Fees, as she led the pro temp meetings last year and did a very exceptional role as she took over after the loss.
This is just nomination.
Oh, just nom. Sorry.
Senator Fees, do you accept? Accepted. Do we have any further nominations? Amber?
I'd like to nominate myself.
I nominated yourself. Okay, so we got Senator Fees and Senator Marquet. Do we have any further senators who would like to make any nominations? Senator Rosamilia?
I would like to nominate Senator Fees.
Senator Fees is already nominated. Do we have any further nominations? Seeing none. So, at this time, I'm going to entertain a motion to go into executive session, which includes Senator Fees and Senator Marquet to also leave the room at the time. So moved by Senator Self. Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Fees. Going on to voting for the executive session. All those in favor? All those who oppose? And all those who abstain. With that, that passes 4-0-2. So, going with that, executive session does pass. So, like I said, all audience members and also the 2 nominations. There is no results today. That got tabled to next week. So, you guys will still be nominated. However, all the questions and things like that will be moved on to next week, and I will yield to the president.
The reason they just decided to table that was because we noticed that we never had the chance to interview the 2 of you, similar to the resolution that was on the table today. So you can't unbiasedly vote if you didn't get the chance to interview the 2 of you during the Senate meeting. I yield.
Chief Justice Tabor.
We also felt like we would want to use that time, but we also wanted to know that there were groups here in the student body that we would also like to discuss with and get to that as well.
Senator Self.
Some of the other senators to mingle with our candidates now too, to figure out some stuff on the outside, and then when we come back, we can shoot those questions, find out some more that might have got skipped over. I yield.
Do we have any further discussion for for pro temps at this moment? Seeing none, this goes back into open forum as we are. So if we have any discussion, our audience member.
Hey guys, if you don't know me, I'm Emma Cassidy. I'm a fifth-year civil engineering major at SUNY Poly. I've been on 2 sports teams. I was in SGU for 3 years. So I've been around. I know a lot of things, right? And so I'm going to ramble for a little bit, but there will be a point. When I started SUNY Poly forever ago, I remember the first things I was hearing was like, SGU sucks. I was like, oh my gosh. It's like the student government here sucks? I was like, that's so crazy. And then the next year, somebody asked me to join CFB, and I was like, I didn't even know that was part of SGU. I didn't even know I was getting paid. They were just like, please join. I was like, okay, sure. And then, you know, I got all the way up. I was in charge of all the clubs, and now I'm here. And I'm still hearing SGU sucks, and it's sad. Because I know SGU has the ability to do so much and be so good, right? And I think some of the issues with SGU comes from the way things are run. Love you guys. You know, I love some of the stuff you do. I think personally during this meeting, don't think poster policy needs to be discussed that much. It's posters. You know, maybe you just tell people, take your posters down. You know, maybe someone goes around and just takes it up. I don't think it needs to be discussed for, 20 minutes like it was. And I think that's what scares people away from SGU. SGU is talking about things or saying things that people don't understand or talking about internal affairs that don't really affect students. Like, as a student, I don't care about posters, to be perfectly honest. If they're up, I'll read them. If they're not, they're not. If it's old, I'll just ignore it, I don't think that is what SGU should be focusing on. I think SGU does great with their community outreach, like the blood drive. Thank you, Bailey, for all the work you did. But I think SGU needs to work on working with the community on campus. We always talk about reaching out. We've got Lucas, who does such amazing work with the community. He's such a great director. But I think SGU, and specifically the committees, need to focus on the students. I think that the students should be put first, always. I think that Wellness Committee last year was the closest to, doing something productive as a committee, but I don't think that the rest of them really lived up to what, they should be doing, and there's this huge SGU image problem, right? How do you fix it? That's what people always ask me, because I always talk about this. So I don't know. I don't have all the answers. If I did, I would have fixed it a long time ago so SGU could be productive. It's going to take a long time for these changes to go through, right? So let's get SGU working in its current state right now. How do we get people to like SGU right now? Next week, next month, next semester. So I checked on Engage. The Engage for SGU is not updated, so you should update your homepage because it doesn't have the current budget. Thankfully, I was in SGU last year, so I do have access to the current budget. Right now, there is $464,850 sitting in reserves. And to be honest, I think that is a failure for SGU. I think that's really embarrassing. I put in $125, and maybe I do get value out of it, because I go to events or whatever, but the fact that we're sitting on over $500,000 in reserves, it should be spent on students. I understand saving some money for, like emergencies or stuff like that, but I think SGU needs to be spending the money that the students are giving them, and I remember last year we sat through, we put up this budget, and then we had to fight for the money. It was this whole back and forth. It took forever. It was very stressful, and I didn't like it at all. And now we've got even more money in reserves than we did last year. SGU can very quickly fix its image by doing stuff for the students. Students don't even know that web is SGU. I hear people talk about how much they love web. Oh my gosh, are you kidding? Like all day. I hear like, oh my gosh, are you going to web event later? Oh, I love web. People don't know that web is SGU because SGU doesn't tell people that. And we did this whole thing with Instagram last year. There's like 500 people on the Instagram. There's 3,000 people that go to this school, right? And I checked the followers because I was interested. I was like, how many of these people are current students? Less than half. So that's, not enough. I think that, the way SGU fixes that is reaching out to students, specifically first years. You give a little 30-minute presentation to the first years. Say, hey, this is student government. We put your money into web, into the clubs, into, the newspaper, into esports. We do all this stuff. We just don't explain to people what we do. And that's sad. And, I think esports did a really good job of reaching out to students when they did their Rockstar event. I thought that was awesome. Are you kidding? Again, I'm on 2 sports teams. The sports team I was on, they were all, so excited about it. They're like, oh, esports is doing this thing, blah, blah, blah. I don't think any of them ever played a video game before, but now they know what esports does. They know this kind of stuff. Giving back to the students is what allows the students to A, understand what SGU does, and B, feel like they're getting something out of their student activities fee. I think people get frustrated. I'm putting $125 and all I'm getting is this, silly, whatever. I think that SGU needs to use all this money that we're sitting on to help students, even something as little as making a donation to Poly Pantry, because a lot of students use Poly Pantry. It's a great resource that we have on campus that people are now knowing about as more people just kind of find out what's happening on campus. People don't know what SGU does because we don't properly advertise what we do, and I think the easiest way to do that is even if you're hey, SGU's holding a lunch, Friday. Come over, and then you talk to people. You say, hey, did you know SGU just sponsored your bowling? Do you know SGU just sponsored you go skiing? SGU sponsors a lot of things. It does a lot of things, and it can do a lot of good. And the fact that I would say 90% of the campus doesn't like SGU is really upsetting and really embarrassing. So, I yield.
President.
So thank you for coming up. So I 100% agree. I actually just had a conversation a few days ago with our advisor. And before do you think it would be appropriate to say the number that Aux Services gave us, the 10%, how much we're Okay, so I'm going to make that call. I'm going to say, yeah, it's 100% appropriate because I think this should be a thing that everybody knows. And I'm going to yield to our advisor to say the exact number, and then I'm going to ask her to yield back to me. So I'll yield to the advisor to, probably not, but I'm going to yield to the advisor to say the exact number.
So it's been recommended, who basically Auxiliary Services oversees all the money, right? They're you pay them to monitor it, to understand the policies of SUNY, to make sure we're not violating rules and policies. So since I have the floor anyways, I'll say that if you don't like the no's that you get, it's because they're responsible for contracts and making sure legally everything happens without issue. So just know that if you ever get pushback, they're protecting you in a lot of ways. But secondly, I did ask them and to kind of give what's the recommendation needs to be spent out of that account. Now, when I say this number, it doesn't mean necessarily everything in this penny this year, but it's ongoing projects over the next 1 or 2 years that should be spent. Can I be really clear about that? The reserve needs to occur because if you have to ever return fees, which did happen 2 years ago, there was money that needed to be there to return those fees to students in the event that a COVID situation ever happened again. You probably were the most likely of all that had money to do that. So there's a recommendation of over 5% and so forth, but it's been recommended you have to spend $122,000 minimum, that has to be spent. SUNY will start to sort of look at your account and you have too much in there. So 122 is the base. Up to, over the next 2 years, give or take, $300,000 is really the recommended amount of money that should be allocated and spent. We're looking at things like major projects, right? So that can be things spent on here. Jay, I'll yield back to you, but that's not about program. We're not gonna have a concert for $200,000, right? It needs to be spent in a very fiscally responsible manner that talks about and influences where change needs to occur, where there issues are on campus. And so we will work with Sean and Jay to do that, and I yield back the floor.
So let's just say it's $150,000 this year, and then next year is another $150,000, and that reaches around that $300,000. $150,000. I'm going to speak as a student, I guess, so then I can kind of be a little bit more biased. But so $150,000. So I know that there have been talks within the e-board as a community member to improve not this building, to make updates, and I'm so thankful that SGU has an advisor like Megan, and all these great ideas are here. But I recommend that we need to think about how we're going to spend this money. I 100% agree with Emma. I think that having that money is just disgusting. I think as a student, I recommend that my senators would possibly push for a reserves pool this semester, or using some of that funding this semester, so then we can get some of those improvements on campus during the winter break. So then when our students come back, they're like, oh my God, what just happened? I want to echo what Emma said again with the committees. I know the e-board well. I got to remember I'm talking as a audience member, but I know that e-board very well, and they're going to start implementing not a policy, but more of a a policy to have the committees have a report at least every other week. Having a committee that doesn't report for more than 2 weeks is concerning. And these reports, I hope as a student, would be about problems on campus. I know the quotes are fun. Logan, I appreciate them every day. Advertising the meeting times, that's fine. But your committees are here to advocate for the students. How many committees actually went out and asked? Well, I guess there's 2 people here, but last year, how many of you actually went out to the student body and asked what was wrong? I'd love to see more interactions with the student body. You are representing your student class. Em and I had a quick discussion about that. You're representing your class. You're not representing yourselves. You're not representing the student government. You're representing your class. I'll yield.
Of information, how many reserve pools can we do per academic year? I yield to the.
I'm going to yield to our treasurer. Our audience member.
I just want to go on the committee things a little more. A senator's job is to work with their committees. You know, you get assigned 2 or 3. It's not just to write bills and resolutions about internal problems. You know, I think a lot of the bills and resolutions we passed last year were dumb and a waste of time. I pushed for was it a resolution? I can't remember. I pushed for a legislation that got through. It's called TikTok on the Clock. It was about putting clocks in every classroom. And you know what? The student who originally came to me about this, he comes up to me, he says, Emma, what happened to the clocks? I said, I didn't even notice. I didn't even notice that they didn't do that. You know, we had this whole thing. We got through the Senate. It was this oh my gosh, it felt like pushing a boulder up a hill. It felt like it was a lot of work, and it just died. You know, but that was a good effort from a committee to do something that the students complained about. You know, like there are no clocks in classroom. There still aren't. We passed something that said something along the line. I can't remember exactly what it said because I haven't looked at it recently. It was like, you know, we're going to make an effort to try and do that. And we haven't. The senators should be, you know, wholly focused on their committees and what they're doing for their committees, you know, and the Senate meeting should just be them coming together to, you know, talk about maybe a couple extra internal affairs, like, ooh, you know, we need to change poster policy or something, you know. I think that Thomas said something really, really awesome earlier while he was doing his interview. He said, it's your job to do what's best for the students. Okay? And, you know, if you're sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, that's so much work, I don't want to do that, then why did you run? You were elected to do this work. If you don't think you can, that's fine. I don't think that's anything wrong with you. But I think if you're sitting in this horseshoe right now, you know, save the work heads. They already do too much work. Don't give them more work. You know, last year I was the one asking all the questions about the bills and resolutions, and that was not my job, you know. The senators need to make sure that they are representing the student body and helping the student body. And if you know, if this is too much work for you, it's not what you do, then I don't think you should be a senator. I yield to Chief Justice Tabor.
Ms. Cassidy. I would like to just state, first of all, me and Ms. Cassidy are very good friends. I as many of us are on the horseshoe. I also think that it is equally as important for students like you who have the experience, who have the position that they do, to take part in student government. And I'm not saying to become a senator. What I am saying is that as somebody who was in a kind of semi-unofficial position, I encourage you to do the same for student government if you would like to see it progress. Because even though you might not have an official position, your impact can be just as great as anybody who sits over there. I yield.
Wildcat Media.
I remember last week it was brought up that we have these suggestion boxes that are on campus that aren't being used. Could we possibly repurpose those so students could just put in suggestions that they would like to see SGU work on?
Senator Rogers.
Or to like representing students. I gotta say, I've been at SUNY Poly for 4 years. I have seen many students say in unofficial capacities in different locations that they would like to get involved with something that they'd like to get an idea. And I've seen about half the time they get told, you shouldn't do that unless you know someone who's already in it, and then you should have them do it. But the problem is, as someone who sat in the audience for about quite a while before I came onto this horseshoe, I didn't know anybody who was here. So there's a bit of like, I guess, a loop where in order to get in, you have to find someone, but in order to find someone, you have to know someone, but you don't know anyone because you can't get in. I think like that, I don't know what I'm really getting to, but like openness is a major challenge in solving this issue. I think that's something that we should probably also keep an eye on. I yield.
Our audience member.
A grievance to the Senate. So take everything that you've just heard and, apply this to this. So this is in Donovan, room 1106. The projector in there is only projecting red. So it kind of looks like Halloween happened on the screen, which is, theme appropriate for the month. However, it's not conducive to learning about perception and sensation in psychology, considering all of the images on there are supposed to be seen in a very specific way, and it kind of ruined the class for us. So I'm not sure if that's a technological issue, but if anybody could just reach out to Safeties and Facilities, Matt Putnam, to see if we can get that fixed. Room 1106 in Donovan, which is only projecting red, that would be fantastic. Thank you. I yield.
Wildcat Esports.
I personally work with IT help desk. That would definitely be not only so much a help desk issue, it would be a tech and ops issues, I believe. I'm just using my knowledge. But that I would recommend anybody that knows any technical issues with technology or anything, just submit it in the IT help desk and we'll get that fixed. I yield.
Our president.
So I'm just going to ask the chair to excuse the treasurer and I. We have a board meeting at 2 o'clock.
All good. All right. Senator Fees.
So now speaking with the senator on the issue that Emma Cassidy brought up, I totally agree. If we're spending too much time on internal policies, we're making us seem like this big, scary legislative monster that it really shouldn't be. And I think committees should be focusing more on things along those lines. And I will be continuing what I'm doing in student wellness while also adding more things to reach out not to only our students, but to our surrounding community. I yield.
Our audience member.
Can you guys hear me? There we go. I cut it off again. Oh, how am I doing that? Hi, my name's Matt Hulse. I'm an IMGD. And so I'm coming to you with a couple things, mainly one. So the IMGD major is looking at attending GDC as a student, as major in IMGD. I'm interested in that, and I know that a lot of other students are also interested in this. So most of you probably don't know what GDC is. You know what IMGD is, of course, but GDC is called the Game Developers Conference. It's held every March in California. Now, that's far away. So we previously, in 2019, before COVID, were planning on going here with a body of 10 students and I believe 2 professors, actually. But that got canceled due to COVID. No planning, oversight, or funding, just COVID. So as a senior in the IMGD major, as well as a marketing major, with the first point made with funding, funding is actually our biggest problem. GDC is not a cheap event. It's expensive. However, it is the game developers conference to be at for game design. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. It actually doesn't get better than that. So what is it good for, right? It's networking. That's 90% of the game design industry. If anyone tells you different, you can get better at stuff. If you can't network and you don't have a network, you'll never get a job. So the game design major doesn't facilitate a ton of networking right now. It does a good job. The professors do a great job inviting guest speakers, talking, reaching out, that stuff. However, the student body, we want to do a big trip. We want to have an opportunity to bolster the job placement outside when seniors and when students for the IMGD major get out into the industry, which right now is not present at all. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. If anyone wants to note in, Morgan, of course, is going to note in as well. We're going to be talking to the dean, Andrew Russell, next week. We also talked to our student advisor, Professor Ussel. Yeah. Yes, I'm yielding to your semi-question.
So I think that's wonderful. I think part of college is social networking. I think that's 50% of college. 50% is knowledge, the other 50% is networking, because networks are super important to getting the job, especially in the industry that you're noting about. You know someone to get in. Making those connections, I think, would be imperative, and I think that's something SGU should take on and look at the logistics of that. So we do have an Academic Affairs and Technology Committee. I am the co-chair of that committee. The chair is right next to me, that's Logan. And then Budget Committee could work together as well. Absolutely, you should come and see us. You can contact either me or Logan or our treasurer, and we would be absolutely willing to help you. This is a really big endeavor, but I think it's most certainly possible, and I think it's important to, especially the seniors in IMGD. I yield to the floor.
So at this time, I am going to be giving the chair to Secretary Wadsworth, as I do have a meeting at 2 p.m. So.
Thank you very much, Vice President Pellegrino. Chief Justice Tabor.
I would like to, I have two things. First, I would like to ask the gentleman, would it be possible for you to come back next week during open forum? Just because, as you notice, the majority. And then I would like to, can I make entertain a motion to adjourn? Is that a thing there?
I don't want to hold anyone.
I have an entertained motion to adjourn. Do I have a so moved? Motion dies. We are still in open forum.
Okay. Well, I know I don't want to hold anybody up. I'll say it.
Oh, you're good. You're good. No, come on. Wildcat Esports.
Professor Ussel is also our advisor as an organization, and we are more than, I'm sorry, I am having a headache because I didn't eat all day. We are more than happy to help get you and anybody interested into this conference. Even though we seem to be mostly related to the competitive side of video games, that doesn't mean we're just solely into that. We are more than happy to help Video Game Club, sorry, not Video Game Club, I'm so sorry.
Don't worry about it, you're cool.
The
You're cool.
IMGD department and anything regards to getting you guys over there. I will admit we have a low travel fund, but we are more than happy to help you guys, help SGU, or even sponsor this event to happen. I yield.
Webb?
Trevor's excusing himself just before I start speaking.
Trevor, you're good. Bye, Trevor.
Bring up, I have been speaking to the representatives before you. They're talking about this. I accompanied them to their meeting with Dr. Ussel this morning, just to be there as a source for any questions involving them making a presentation at SGU. They initially approached Webb to ask if we would assist with funding, and I responded to them to bring it to the SGU as they have funds to look for available and would seem like something that a committee would definitely love to help them with. Personally, I thought that Webb's funding wouldn't be appropriate to spend towards that since it's not a full student body centered activity, but it's something that I did very much want to help them support doing, as for one, it is a really good gateway for more interactions with students from the school and companies, no matter where that may be. Any interaction towards there can only lead to more. So I think it's really important that we do take every bit of time to support it as we can through SGU. I
Chief
yield to
Justice?
Chief Justice. Yeah.
I think it's very clear that there's a measurable amount of support for this. So now I think the conversation should be who is going to take over this project. I know that Wildcat Esports had mentioned that they would partake in it. Are they able to submit a bill? Is that a thing?
Yep.
So would Wildcat Esports, would it be appropriate for I would ask the Senate, would it be appropriate for Wildcat Esports to work on this project and then have it submitted for the floor? I yield to Senator Peace.
I think that depends. I think as long as it's open to all IMGD majors, it could be okay, just because they do serve the full of the student body. That's something you would have to talk to Dan and Sean and Bailey and the exec board. I was going to say the exec board. That's something you would have to talk to the exec board about. I think it would be an appropriate thing to submit a resolution just because it does pertain to them. However, I don't want them to submit something that then goes against their constitution, and it's just like, well, esports is gone. Well, not like that, but you know what I mean? So I yield.
So I don't know if I can do this. I'm going to speak as the secretary and not the chair for the minute. I would recommend to you, if you are able to come back next week
Of course, yep.
and talk to our treasurer as well, because I do think it is a great idea, and I do think that it's important to bring up. I would also, if you could, if possible, maybe get an estimate.
Yeah, I can give a rough estimate based on 2019. I did a adjustment for both inflation and then just costs of like California area and then GDC. Yep. So we'd be sitting somewhere in the ballpark for 15 students around 60 to 62,000. Okay. So it's a big number because GDC is a big event. However, this is not something that's this is something that has the college. It's not just a student thing. It's not, just to clarify, this is a fun event, but it's completely to reflect SUNY Poly, and then more specifically, the students at SUNY Poly. And so just to clarify. And then also, that's highball. Like, that's insane. I took everything into account with that number. So that is going pedal to the metal. So highball.
Our Morgan.
All right, so I guess I'm just going to, put down a little more logistics that we had already discussed and brought this to you. Just to state, this had been something that we had been talking about before I was here, so I'm here as a student. At the discussion with Dr. Ussel, we had talked about locations from which we could seek funding. We've been going over all of our options. As it stands, we plan on we're obviously asking student government. There are other organizations we have spoken to who have encouraged or have options to assist in this, so we're not necessarily asking you for the brunt of $62,000. We just like to clarify. We are most likely just asking to, split with student government and whoever else we can encourage to include. And I guess speaking somewhat further to the number of students, I guess the question for that and exactly how we would like to seek this sort of thing would depend on the willingness of everybody that we are asking to help us out. Most likely student government would be the heaviest to exactly what scope we are looking for. As it stands, we are looking for a group of the seniors in IMGD. We could ideally take all of the seniors in IMGD. Even better, we could take a majority of IMGD, but that would be very difficult given the number of us, not you.
Our advisor.
Yeah, so I want to, so I should clarify back to that point. I want to use, the reason why I reference seniors as a word is simply because they're the people getting out the soonest, so it's the most relevant to them. However, if students like sophomores or juniors illustrate that they are very dedicated to going very invested in going, willing to, help out in some way or help plan, stuff like that. I want to keep it open to participation and involvement. So, yeah.
Wildcat Esports?
Even though 62,000 is a lot, we are more than happy to sponsor and partially give money, accompanied with SGU. Part of our constitution and governing documents, again, is not just about competitive video games. It is about casual as well, and casual could be very broad. So I personally think that also includes It also includes networking. There we go. Networking in the video game industry. So again, you have our full support. I yield.
Chief Justice Tabor.
I would like to reiterate to the floor that I think that the discussion should no longer be about whether or not we support this, because I think it's very clear that we all support this. I think the conversation should be about who will be taking on this process, and if those who are not here, if the people that we want involved are not here, then I think we should move along.
Webb.
Going along with what our Chief Justice has said, as they have stated, they are planning on meeting with their dean this next upcoming week, and as they said, they are not specifically requesting for SGU to pay this full bill. They're asking for their support as an accompaniment to whatever other support they can get. I think having them extend with, as Ava said, a committee, as well as esports possibly helping, since they have a lot of outreach in that community, would be a great suggestion of who to take over this conversation, and for them to come back to the meeting next week to discuss any support that they would get from the dean. I yield to Senator Feast.
So we're missing quite a lot of people that we would need to talk to for this. So I'm not sure how much more I can say on this. As much as I have power in the horseshoe, I don't have the power to say yes or no. I don't have the power to give you that money. But I know Sean would be more than much. Treasurer would be more than willing to work with you. I'm just the co-chair of Acting Affairs and Technology. I really don't have a lot to say in that committee. We have to talk to Logan, who is also left. So I would say a discussion on this, we should probably stop discussion on this until we have people who have that expertise to tell you the next steps and to help you write the legislation that you really need to garner the funds for this. I think this is a great idea. I just don't think we have enough people here that represent those facets of SGU that we're able to have enough.
And thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wildcat Esports.
I will say that we will, as far as your whenever you want to talk to SGU, whether that is a resolution, ultimately a resolution or bill, I think, we will help you on that. So whatever resolution that needs to be written for this, Wildcat Esports will be on that. So we will fully help you, and the next meeting you have, so that meeting with Andrew Russell, if you will let me know when that meeting is, I will be there.
Webb.
Next week, it would probably be under their best interest if there is a committee meeting, Ava, for you to let them know with communication at that time. Yield to Senator Feast. Yeah.
Audience member, everybody?
Good.
We're good. I think we're good.
Awesome.
Or Jared, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I guess one thing that I don't think was super touched on that I want to reiterate about the GDC trip is that GDC is specifically a very professional event. So everybody that goes, like, we'd want to make sure that when doing it, people are aware that, like, you have to, like, look the part and everything when you're attending, and it's not like a recreational thing. It's very much, yeah, business.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Pro Tem Feast. okay. Do I have a second? Senator Rosmelia. All right, we are adjourned at. To have a vote on adjournment. Okay. Do I have. Hang on. Does anybody oppose unanimous consent to adjournment? All right, that vote passes. 5-0-0. We are adjourned at 2:09.